Hello and welcome to Pock and Rob. This video I have been toying with making for quite a while. I've been prepping this list and refining it and changing it for a good couple of years actually. I'm finally ready, I think, to do it, and I've decided to just go for it. It is my ranking of George Harrison's albums. Now, I've done McCartney multiple times. I'm probably going to end up doing it again, my favourite artist, and I've done Lennon. And before you ask, I have no plans to do Ringo. But it's about time I got around to do my George ranking. I've got 12 albums to consider, but let's start with my 12th ranked album, and it's his second album, Electronic Sound. I don't own it. I don't want it. I've listened to it once. I don't want to listen to it again. This was released on the Zapple label in 1969. It's an experiment. It's an experiment that I don't think works. Electronic Sound, number 12. At number 11, I also don't own this. It is Wonderwall, the soundtrack music that he composed in 1968. Its most notable contribution really to popular culture is the fact that it was nicked as a song title by Oasis for Wonderwall. It's my number 11. Number 10, an album that arguably he shouldn't have recorded. Dark Horse. It's gloomy, it's muddy, his voice was appalling because he had laryngitis, as was proven on that ill-fated tour that followed it. He was coming off the back of two highly successful solo records, and he got pasted. There's a terrible cover with rewritten lyrics of Bye Bye Love on it. It's got Ding Dong on it. I mean, Ding Dong is unmitigated rubbish. The best thing on here is probably Harry's on Tour. Talking about the tour he shouldn't have actually done because of his laryngitis. And that's an instrumental. Dark Horse, I don't like it. From 1974. My number 10, and the bottom of his proper albums. At number 9, Extra Texture. These two albums often interchange on ranking lists of George Harrison as being his worst records. It is... George was fed up with his record label. This was, to a certain extent, a contractual completion. You is an enjoyable little song, but it's substanceless. There's a rewrite on here of While My Guitar Gently Weeps, as This Guitar Can't Keep From Crying. It's uninspired, it's flat, it's got a joke on it, I suppose, of his name is Legs. I mean, that's a little bit fun. And then there's a little bit more of You, because he really was out of ideas. And maybe I'm going to be charitable to George and say he wasn't out of ideas. He just didn't want to give them to Apple. And so this was his last studio album for Apple. And it stiffed. Utterly stiffed. And quite rightly too. It's a flat and boring record, Extra Texture. It's my number 9. At number 8, an album that possibly could have been better. Depends on your point of view. It is Somewhere in England from 1981. Now, this returned George to the charts on both sides of the Atlantic because it contains All Those Years Ago, a song that he was giving away to Ringo, and then December the 8th, 1980 happened and Lennon was murdered, and he repurposed it with new lyrics as a tribute to John. And it's a good song, but his record label were not happy with this as he originally presented it, and told him to replace tracks like Sat Singing and Flying Hour, and put other stuff on here. And as a result, it feels disjointed and broken. There are little gems on here. I've already mentioned All Those Years Ago. Baltimore Oriole, his cover of that's pretty decent. And Blood from a Clone's okay. But I think it's indicative that George really was getting fed up with the music industry at this point. And Somewhere in England, being told to replace almost half your album by your record company and you're a Beatle must have stung. And the product of that being stung is the next album, which I have placed at number 7, Gone Troppo. I have seen this cited as George's worst album. And whilst it isn't good, it contains some of my favourite George tracks. It has Circles on here, which was originally demoed in the Escher demos in 1968 and had taken him 14 years to actually put down on tape properly. But the real shiners on here are Wake Up My Love, That's the Way It Goes, and the title track, Gone Troppo. And now I know these as a result of my introduction to George Harrison, which was the Dark Horse compilation that came out in 89-90. And all three are on the CD version, and they're actual highlights of that compilation. Gone Troppo in particular, I think is a brilliant song. Really, really good fun. And it's those 3 tracks, which I would probably say are all better than the best track on any of the previous albums mentioned, that puts this at number 7, even though it is deeply flawed and George couldn't give a toss about the record. Gone Troppo, number 7. So, we're halfway through. So I am now going to do my usual. I'm going to remind you to subscribe if you haven't already done so. To hit the thumbs up and like the video, as that really helps with YouTube algorithms sharing this with other people. To click the bell to receive notifications of the future content, and share the video with someone else who might like it, particularly if they happen to be at all into George Harrison. And let's do the top 6. At number 6, I have placed Living in the Material World. Now, this was the follow-up to All Things Must Pass, and I do not like this record as much as virtually everybody else who likes George Harrison seems to. I think this is preachy. Proper preachy. Now, Give Me Love, Give Me Peace on Earth is a really nice song. Sue Me, Sue You Blues is terrific. And Try Some Buy Some, which was left over from the All Things Must Pass sessions, is also really, really good. There's other tracks on here that I do still quite like. Be Here Now. The title track, Living in the Material World. But I've placed it at number 6. At number 5, I have placed the eponymous album, George Harrison from 79. So at this point here, George has gotten divorced. He's gotten married for the second time. He's in a happy place. He's cheerful George. He's comfortable with himself. And he turns in a really smooth and sublime album with many highlights. Blow Away, Here Comes the Moon, the sequel to Here Comes the Sun. Not Guilty finally finds its way out of the vaults. It's a lovely album, and George is in a state of domestic happiness. He's recording what he wants without interference, because that was to come on the next album, and he turns in a beautiful eponymous album. George Harrison is my number 5. At number 4, I've placed 33 1/3, his first album on the Dark Horse label, which was becoming a subsidiary of Warner Records. So George is coming out of a period of critical mauling. This came out in 76. However, it was delayed as George developed hepatitis, and it was supposed to come out on his 33 1/3 birthday. It didn't. It came out a bit later. This has got Crackerbox Palace. What a song. First accounted for me, again, off that Best of Dark Horse compilation. The only track from 33 1/3, and that's Criminal, actually, because Beautiful Girl should also have been on here. Should have been on that compilation. Pure Smokey is really good. But then there's also this song, where George has fun with his video on that as well. And that's all around the lawsuit over My Sweet Lord. And He's So Fine by the Chiffons. And the fact he lost. And the whole thing is about this song has nothing bright about it because it's owned by Bright Tunes. He was playing with language and words again. And 33 and a third. It's a really fine album. I placed it at number 4. At number 3, and part of the reason why I'm doing this ranking now is because I finally got this on vinyl and I just want to show it off. It's Brainwashed from 2002. His posthumous record. Completed using detailed notes by Darnie Harrison and Jeff Lynne. And an album that was 12 years in the making. He was doing bits and pieces. The anthology came along and defocused him. He was attacked, which ultimately led to a return of his cancer, it is believed. But Brainwashed. On here, we've got Any Road and P2 Vatican Blues, Marwa Blues, which won a Grammy for Best Rock Instrumental, I think. We've also got his version of Run So Far, which was done on my favourite Eric Clapton album, which is Journeyman. Pisces Fish, Looking for My Life, and it's a really, really good album, actually. And it was a good final statement from George. And number 2, I have placed Cloud 9. If you really thought I was going to place anything else than what I placed at number 1, then you really don't know music. Cloud 9 from 1987. George's great comeback. So, Gone Troppo, 1982, he walked away from music. He got more interested in fast cars and Formula 1. And then he started hanging out with Jeff Lynne, who produced this. It is very much a Jeff Lynne produced record. It's dripping with ELO sound. But George's songwriting on here is what makes this, for me, his second best album. So we've got the title track, Cloud 9. If That's What It Takes follows it. Fish on the Sand. This Is Love. Wreck of the Hesperus. The huge hit single, Got My Mind Set on You, which is a cover, but it's, if you ever heard the original, it's drastically different. He wanted to do that with the Beatles, apparently. So he's been in his jukebox, personal jukebox, for years and years. And then there's Devil's Radio, opening side 2. And this, or When We Was Fab. This is such a good album that it's such a shame it took him another 14 years and passing to actually follow it up. It's my number 2. So before I go into my number 1, I'm just going to mention an album that probably would take the number 2 spot, and that is the Travelling Wilburys Volume 1. So there's only 3 true George songs on there. End of the Line, Handle With Care, which was what was being recorded and led to the whole album because it was going to be a B-side to That's What It Takes, I think, where it was going to be the third. No, This Is Love. And Heading for the Light. But they are such good George songs that the whole project was birthed by George, and it was what it probably would be my number 2. But it's not truly a George album. So let's mention the number 1. It is obviously All Things Must Pass. So we kick off with I'd Have You Anytime. We then have My Sweet Lord, the mega hit, which is probably my least favourite track off the record. Wah Wah, the song he wrote when he quit the Beatles in the Get Back sessions. Isn't It a Pity, which we get 2 of, we only really need 1. What Is Life, and Behind Closed Doors, Apple Scruffs, Art of Dying, which is an amazing song. It is an embarrassment of riches, like I said, and it can only be the best album in George's entire catalogue. Nothing else actually holds a candle to it. Even much as I like stuff like Cloud 9 and Brainwashed and Travelling Wilburys, nothing holds a candle to this album. It is one of the finest albums of the 1970s, as if you've watched my 1970s rundown, you will see I kind of ended up ranking this alongside Band on the Run and Hunky Dory as my favourite 1970s album because it is so strong. It's my number one. And that concludes my ranking of George's 12 albums. Well, 12 and a half. I'd love to know what you think about it. Please do let me know in the comments below. I'll be back soon with another video, but until then, I'd remind you to subscribe if you haven't already done so, to click the thumbs up, to click the bell, and to share this video with someone else who might like it, and thanks for watching.